In this video, I'm going to be replacing this brake hose, which is on the front passenger side wheel. The first thing I want to do is remove the wheel, so take off all 5 of your lug nuts with a 21mm socket. All right, take the wheel off. So as you can see, my brake hose here is broken. It's clamped on with this clamp here so that it won't leak. And typical Ford, it rotted and it literally ripped off of the other half of it. So obviously this has to be replaced. And unfortunately I can't show you disconnecting it off the caliper. I will talk you through it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So what I can show you though is how to disconnect it off of the brake line that comes out from the truck. And this is basically the more difficult part. A lot of times this will get seized in here and you will either spin this fitting and rip the line off, or maybe you can't even get it disconnected, period. I've been spraying mine down with rust penetrant for a while, and the line as well as the fitting and even the brake hose up here, they look decent. They're not rotted, so I'm hoping for the best. However, before we do that, let's just disconnect the ABS wire off of the brake hose. That way that's done. Once we get that unhooked, we can just remove the brake hose. So pop this off. Your new brake hose should come with new mounting clips for the ABS wire. There we go. Set that aside. Since I've been spraying it, I'm just going to try and break this free with an 11mm flare nut wrench. I highly recommend using a flare nut wrench because, as you can see, it grips onto more sides than just an open-ended wrench. So put it on here and give it a spin. Sometimes this bracket will want to bend, so what you can do is just grab it with some locking pliers, lock them on tight, and then try to break this free. It looks like it broke free, so that's a good thing. And now I'm going to keep the locking pliers on here for a little bit so I can have a good grip on this bracket. Let's see if it'll stay without bending if I take them off now. That way you can see what's happening. Yeah, okay, so it's working. That's a good thing. I'm just gonna unthread this fitting off of the hose all the way. Okay, I would say that is off, which is great. I'm gonna spray it down to clean off the threads. I have a collection bucket underneath because at this point brake fluid is coming out of this line. And as you can see, there's a 10mm bolt that holds on this bracket. Let's go ahead and remove this. And there's your old brake hose. Discard this. Wipe off the fitting to make sure that there's no junk on there. Get your new brake hose and thread it on. Keep in mind, as you do this, the brake fluid is going to go through and drip out the other end of this brake hose, so pay attention where you aim it. Let's bolt on the bracket. Nice and snug, and now we have a more secured brake hose here so we can actually thread in this fitting all the way, make it nice and snug. Okay, maybe one more turn and that should be good. Perfect. On the caliper side, remove the banjo bolt from the caliper. Assuming this was your original caliper, you would just take a 14mm wrench or socket to it, break it free and take it off completely. Like I said, can't really show you that because I don't have an original caliper here anymore. And you always want to use 2 brand new copper washers. Don't ever reuse the old ones because they will most likely not seal up. So leave one on the bolt, take the hose and route it properly where it needs to go behind the knuckle. Slide the bolt through, and then on the other side you want to put on another copper washer. So you want to sandwich the hose in between 2 washers and then line it up with the caliper and thread it on. Go ahead and bottom this out. Like I said, 14mm socket. I'm just going to bottom it out, and once it's bottomed out, which is right here, I like to go about half a turn, maybe 2/3 of a turn, and basically your goal is to crush those copper washers, and that's what's going to seal up everything nicely. And as always, clean off your mess because you don't want to accidentally confuse a potential leak for residual fluid from installation. So clean off any fluid that dripped, dry this whole area up so that in case you do have a leak, you're going to know that it's a leak and you can fix it. Now if you look up, we have the bleeder screw right here. Pop off this little boot, Then I'm going to use a 3/8 wrench. If you use a 10 millimeter, it's a little too big and it's going to potentially strip out the hex cutout there. Break this free, loosen it up, and now we'll let gravity pull the fluid down into the caliper and push the air out. This is called a gravity bleed. We will still have to do a full manual brake bleed after this, which consists of topping off your master cylinder first because you lost some fluid. You want to make sure it's nice and full up to the max line. Then close up this bleeder, have someone pump up the brake pedal in the car, and after a few pumps, have them hold pressure on the brake pedal, crack open the bleeder screw, and watch out because fluid and air will shoot out of here. As the pedal reaches the floor, go ahead and close up this bleeder, pump up again, and then repeat the process until you have no more air bubbles coming out of this caliper. Then close it up and top off your master cylinder again, and then we can continue, but for now, let's wait for the gravity bleed to be done. Okay, we have a steady trickle of fluid here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this off, and then like I said, I'll perform the full manual brake bleed. I won't show you that because I explained the procedure, but I of course will do it. Snug it. Now you would perform your manual brake bleed. After you're done, don't forget to put on this little boot that protects the bleeder from getting clogged up, and if it does get clogged up, you might not be able to use it in the future. And one last thing to do is to reattach the ABS wire to the brake hose clips right here. There's 1 and 2. Perfect. Let's put the wheel back on, put on all 5 of your lug nuts, and torque them to 150 foot-pounds. That is if you have the 5 lug wheel pattern. If you have 7 lugs, then you want to torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Double check them. There you have it.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.